Happy August, folks. Welcome to the podcast. Under review, Ryan Pulser and Liam Green here. And at a time where we thought we could do some rest and relaxation, the hockey news exploded.
Not a chance.
It's been insane. It's been a crazy couple of days. We're gonna fill you all in on it. I think we're just jumping right into it. This is gonna be a long episode, I think.
Yeah, it might be
So
on the longer side.
where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, the news of the day was that Pittsburgh and the St. Louis Blues started to do some business, which was seemingly just, a trade swap, or a pick swap, rather. Pittsburgh receives a 2026 second rounder and a 2025 third rounder. St. Louis gets a 2025 second rounder and 2026 fifth rounder. Nothing out of the ordinary. Pick swaps happen all the time, right? And then the St. Louis Blues go on to do something I don't think has been done in a little while. The last example I can think of was Jesperi Kotkaniemi for Carolina.
That was the last one.
And that's a little known thing, not little known, but rarely used offer sheet. And to Edmonton, no less, they're trying to pick up Philip Broberg, I believe still considered a rookie defenseman. But had
No.
No, is he no longer a rookie? Okay.
Not a rookie.
Okay, not rookie then, but they're still young. I think the ages are like very early 20s.
Well, the reason you think he's a rookie is because he's played 81 NHL games.
Okay.
That's it. And he's 23.
Okay. And then Dylan Holloway as well, who I think is the younger one then. I thought the other age was 22.
Exactly what it is. Man, it's... I think lost in the reaction of all of this is a very simple question that I haven't heard asked enough.
Mhm.
Why do you think these players are worth this?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the contract, so I believe, if I'm remembering right, there's this very specific AAV for the two players, and I think it's the exact dollar amount, or is it $1 less?
$1 less.
$1 less than what the compensation would be for the pick.
So for people that don't know, because this stuff doesn't come up very often, the way offer sheets are broken down is there are salary ranges, which basically determine the picks that you have to give up. And as my co-host just pointed out, they basically would go one under the next tier. So if they had have paid $1 more AAV for Philip Broberg, instead of giving up a second round pick, it would be a first and a third round pick. And for Holloway, instead of giving up a third pick, that would have just jumped up to a second round pick, which is less concerning, but they very carefully picked their numbers.
Oh, for sure.
I guess I should lead with, God, this is fun. What a fun thing. Oh, and it couldn't happen to a team that I'd like to see squirm more. What a fun thing to happen. I mean, I've seen the whole range of reactions to this for Philip Broberg. And I want to talk about him first because I think he's an interesting case. Top 10 pick, a little bit before COVID. So back, because there was a couple years where like draft slots were just wild, right?
Yeah.
Like people were bouncing around. He wasn't there. He was picked top 10 because he was looked at as a top 10-ish talent. Hasn't been great. Last year he played 12 games in the regular season, 2 points. Did play 10 playoff games, 3 points, which is, definitely an improvement. But there's not a lot here. You go back to last year, he played a career high 46 games, tied his career high with 1 goal, and career high 7 assists and 8 points. And I've seen a lot of people range from, you know what, Broberg's probably not worth that, to this guy's elite. And he made Darnell Nurse look passable.
Very difficult thing to do.
You wouldn't think with the salary, but here we are.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, and what I like about the deal is the term gives them the ability to give him a couple years, see where he's at, and if you want to bring him back, you can either A, sign him for less, kind of how they did it with Kotkaniemi, or if he proves that he was worth the investment, you give him the long-term contract that he deserves. But I mean, he's 6'4". He has a lot of the things you like. He can hit you. He can hurt you. He's played 3 times at the World Juniors. He's got a bit of a scoring touch, 38 points in 49 AHL games last year. Like, there's a lot of things about this player that you understand why he was picked 8th overall.
Oh, yeah.
It hasn't really panned out, and I think a part of that is also credited to the Oilers have a lot of depth. Like, they don't necessarily have a lot of high-end talent, but they do have a lot of depth. This is the takes that I've seen online, and I'm inclined to agree with it. I do not see the Edmonton Oilers matching this one.
No.
I just don't think it's possible.
Well, I
Like,
mean, let alone like the major story with the Oilers beyond the new general manager is that Draisaitl's contract is up in a year, and he could be considered like one of the best players in the world by some, and that doesn't come cheap to either the Edmonton Oilers or any other team who may want to put in a bid for him. That's not cheap, you know. Oilers are fortunate that they have like 2 monster forwards in Connor McDavid and his number 2, Leon Draisaitl. So, you know, you have to save away money to sign him because he's going to want money. He's going to want probably bigger money than he has now. And, you know, that's just the nature of how if you play a monster game, you're going to get the big bucks. And, you know, the Blues are sort of jumping on this. It's almost like they're taking advantage of the Oilers. You know, the Oilers, they did just go to the Cup final in the last round of the playoffs. And we sort of saw the same thing with Florida in that they had to give up a solid amount of their, not their core, but, you know, some solid pieces to their team that helped them make that run, right? And now Oilers are not immune to that because they did go to the final and, you know, they did re-sign Enrique and a couple of others. But, you know, they're not immune to people wanting to pick apart their team to use for their own.
what is interesting about that too, though, is they also did add. They brought in Victor Arvidsson. They were in a position to go out and spend some pieces. But I think you highlighted a very important thing with Draisaitl. I think there's a reason this is a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Because my first kind of thought when I saw the offer sheet was, okay, you get him and you give him the Kotkaniemi treatment. But wait, you can't, at least not right away, because he's got 2 years. But I think that's it. You know, you have to pay him too much money for 1 year. You go, yeah, okay, whatever, I can do that. You got to do it for 2, so you're gonna put $4.5 million on that cap, and you got to figure out how to navigate next year. That's tough. And I think there's a very, very simple reason that both of these players got that offer because, I mean, there's a real concern that they're not going to be able to figure this out next year.
Yeah.
But even so, great, you did that. Now, do you trade them when that comes, or do you just let them walk and not worry about the headache? Because, I mean, it's Draisaitl, Jeff Skinner's a UFA, fine, whatever. Perry's a UFA, Connor Brown, Derek Ryan, fine, whatever. Evan Bouchard. Evan Bouchard needs a pay raise. You think that guy's not getting paid? Do you have $4.5 million? And he's an RFA, so you're less concerned about it. But do you have $4.5 million to go throw at Philip Broberg, who played 12 regular season games for you last year? I just don't think you do. And honestly, to an extent, I do think the same thing applies to Dylan Holloway. It's obviously a lower number, about 2.3 million, but are you prepared to pay that to a guy who had 9 points in 38 games? His first round pick, 2020, you know, there was still kind of normal scouting at that point, a little bit. There, you know, you missed some time, but you got like a couple years to see guys. So, you know, he was there for a reason. But career high in 9 points, he's done it in 2 years, 51 and 38 games respectively. Are you going to put yourself in that sort of hole on your salary cap? Can you put yourself in that kind of hole? I just don't know that you can.
Yeah. But I also wonder if. So I'm trying to think of if the Oilers do want to keep. So obviously, keep in mind there's the young factor as well, right? And looking at their roster, Cody Ceci, age 30, making three and a quarter this season, then is a UFA after that. Brett Kulak also 30, 2.75, but up in 2 years. And then just looking at who else. Yeah, you already mentioned the UFAs. Jeff Skinner, $3 million. Like, it's plausible that they could, but they'd have to likely sell off Jeff Skinner, which honestly, I think they might keep him beyond the trade deadline if they want to make a deeper push. Victor Arvidsson's already in for at least one more year after this one starts and comes to a close. Evander Kane is another question as well. It's been reported that he could be on LTIR for the start of the season, at least. Something about potentially needing surgery to some degree, but regardless, not being ready for the start of the season. So there is a little bit of relief in that. Like, his cap hit is hovering around the 5 million range. Yeah, 5.13 according to Puckpedia. So it's not impossible if Edmonton wants to keep them to, but they're definitely going to have to do some juggling.
Here's how that goes, though, okay? You pick up the phone. You're Stan Bowman. And I vomit in my mouth a little bit, but you're Stan Bowman. And you're like, hey, I'd like to trade Cody Ceci. And then 31 other teams hang up on you in unison and laugh at you. And then you call them back and you're like, guys, I'm serious. And they're like, oh, okay. Give me 2 first-round picks. What are you going to do? Not trade him? You have no leverage. You're a GM who's in the league for the first time in quite a few years. There is no situation where you're getting out of this and not hurting. So the question is, and this is the question I think is going to be asked, is if you have to pay let's say a first-round pick to get rid of Ceci. Because that's, I think, realistically, if the other GMs do their job right, that's what you're paying.
Yeah.
Is Broberg worth losing Ceci, losing the first-round pick for Ceci, and not getting the second-round pick from the Blues? It's a lot of assets for Broberg, and after a year, you might have to revisit him because you got to pay Bouchard.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I almost wonder if Bowman's the type to take that gamble, though.
Oh, I think he is. But man, that's a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah. I mean, any way you put it, it's a hard thing to swallow, as you mentioned, right? It's clear that the Blues sort of jumped on this. I mean, there's a reason they use the offer sheets, which hasn't been used again since Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who I believe went from Montreal to the Canes. And as you mentioned, like, underpaid for him, and Montreal didn't, I don't think they
overpaid and then got him for less afterwards.
Okay, yeah. So,
although that turned into a disaster somehow. He's been really bad.
Yeah. And then there's a reason the Blues did an offer sheet specifically for these two, and it's to put the hurt on the Oilers. Which some people will say, oh, good, great. And others will be like, oh, well, why are you messing with my team, right?
31 NHL fans are like, good.
Yeah.
Here's what I also will say about the Blues, and what I like about this move for them is I'm in and I'm looking at their upcoming free agents. Here are their RFAs in the next 2 years. 2 years from now, it's Alexander Texier and Matt Kessel, while next year it's Alexei Tropchenko, Jake Neighbors, Scott Prunovich, and P.O. Joseph.
Mm.
And Joel Hofer and Nets. That's it. That's the list. Because you got to remember, when Montreal lost Kotkaniemi, that was a response to the Aho thing.
Yeah.
Montreal went and offer sheeted Aho. Aho just kind of used it as leverage. He didn't really want to go to Montreal, I don't think. And the Hurricanes fire back. There's no fire back here. There is no risk. The only player on that list who I think is even like a major piece of your organization is, you hope Jake Neighbors becomes that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that he's necessarily there. P.O. Joseph was fine in Pittsburgh last year. I'm not that worried about there's just not that much here.
Yeah.
Perunovic has decent numbers, but again, I'll take Broberg over Perunovic in terms of who I think has a higher ceiling. I like this move from the Blues because I don't think there's a lot of bite back. The only thing that could look a little crummy for the Blues is if Broberg gets matched. That deal with the Penguins looks a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
But that's the risk you take to play the game. I love it from Dubas. Can't ask for much more than that. Get an extra couple picks, move up a couple rounds, because what are you going to do? You need me.
Mm-hmm.
And, solid work on that end. But, if you get one of these guys, I think you're happy with that outcome. For the Oilers, how much young talent do you really have to lose? Because I think it's less than you would like it to be. So I'm a huge fan of this from St. Louis's perspective, even though, as I think about it, I'm not really sure either player is worth the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost not even about that.
Yeah.
I pulled it up because I was curious. The last time an NHL player drafted by the Oilers played in 10 games or more, excluding Holloway and Broberg, was Evan Bouchard in 2018. No player besides those two has played in 10 games for the Oilers that they've drafted. The only two that have played games is, sorry, let me get this. Moosehead's legend, Raphael Savoie, and Matej Blumel, who played 6 games, and Lavoie played 7. There's not a lot here. Also, I just realized Tyler Tullio never played in the NHL, and that makes the Matthew Savoie deal look so much worse. I actually don't understand what Buffalo was doing. Actually, I thought he played last year, and he did not. Okay. And you know what? That deal probably makes Edmonton feel a little bit better about this, to be honest, because I think trading out Holloway for Savoie, okay, it's not great. You'd like to have both, but I think that's actually not too bad of a spot for them to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he'll have a real shot at making the roster next year. But yeah, this team doesn't necessarily have a whole crap ton of guys who are ready to make that jump.
Yeah.
Losing 2 former first round picks sucks. That sucks.
Yeah.
But have you tried not paying Darnell Nurse $9 million? Just a question. I just have
yeah.
to ask.
Yeah.
Have you tried paying him less money?
Well, he's locked into 2030, and I don't think there's anyone in the world who would be willing to take on that contract, unless I'm thinking like a wild move from Utah again. Because, they went out and got Sergachev, which Murillo would have never, ever done before one of the Coyotes. No. He would have never, ever went out and made a big move like that. And maybe. Probably not, but maybe.
Throw in a couple first round picks, they'll talk.
Yeah. They'll talk. Hey, I mean, Arizona, formerly Arizona, now Utah, probably has them in the back. I'm sure they have, but they also need those picks pretty badly.
No. Utah is getting the picks.
Yeah.
Utah is getting the first round picks. Let's not make a mistake. They're not getting Nurse and paying for him. That would not, especially after these offer sheets, that would not happen. I would love to be a fly on the wall on Stan Bowman's phone calls. A, to call him mean things in front of him and to his face.
Yeah.
And B, because I would love to know how those conversations are going right now. I would love to know what the plan is.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting couple.
Do we have any final notes on this? I think that's mostly everything. That's so much fun. I'm so glad it's happened.
Yeah, my only other thing is that adding on to the Matt Savoie thing, or I guess, you know what, let me say this. So you reckon they're more likely to stick with Holloway rather than Broberg? Or the other way? If they were to at all, that is.
I think when you look at it, do you have a spot for $2 million on a forward and we go, listen, we need a little more idea, especially because Kane's probably not going to start the year? Or do you pay 4.5 for Broberg, who has played less than a full season in his career? Because I believe there is also certain protections for these players, right? Like you can't go out and instantly trade these players once you sign this deal. They're locked in till a certain point.
Mhm.
So obviously next year comes, you could look at that flip, but like I think Holloway is a more affordable price because right now with these offer sheets, and this is an important thing to note, the Oilers are at negative $7.2 million.
Yeah. Which isn't illegal yet.
It's very legal. You're allowed to do it because this league has silly rules on how everything works. Firstly, I would like to remind you that about just shy of 3 million of that is because Connor Brown played more than 10 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to remind you Connor Brown had 12 points in 71 games. And they have to pay him $3 million this year. Which is concerning. But regardless, minus $7 million. Okay, Kane goes on LTIR. That's $5 million back. So you're at the cap floor if you bring back Holloway. Like you're right there. Or if you lose Holloway, sorry. And you get a couple million to play with if you lose Broberg.
Mm.
Because again, unless Kane just, magically has an injury that carries all the way to the playoffs, which has never happened in the history of the sport.
He said with a straight face.
Look at my face, it's straight.
Yeah.
So unless something crazy like that happens, he'll come back and you're going to have the same problem.
Hmm.
Maybe it's easier to get rid of a CC player midseason. I don't know. I don't necessarily see a way that works out, but I just think $4 million for Broberg's a lot.
Hmm.
But I will say in Broberg's defense, I think forward is a bit more replaceable of a position because I do think Savoie can come in and be that guy.
Yeah.
Or Arvidsson can step up and play that role. And you have him, maybe play a little bit above his pay grade for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or have Skinner play on that role because I think Skinner's going to get a real high look at that lineup. If he's not with McDavid at least a little bit, I'll be surprised.
Yeah. Or at
You
least
know,
be part of like the first power play or something like that with McDavid.
so maybe you look at Skinner and you look at Arvidsson as these are the guys that we can put up high in our line, plug in for them. Because I guess to an extent, I don't necessarily think they have as much security on the defensive position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you lose him, you're likely looking at one of Josh Brown and Troy Stetcher as your number 6 defenseman, which is fine, I think.
There are worse options on other
There's
teams.
worse options. I actually like Stetcher. I'm not so high on Brown. Brown analytically is a nightmare. His analytics are not good. He is near the bottom of the league in a lot of categories, but not everyone believes in analytics. So maybe the Oilers don't. But I think right now Holloway is way more likely to be a reasonable option to pin in
Mm-hmm.
than Broberg is.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go to next?
What to next?
Do we
Let's.
keep going with Pittsburgh?
Yeah. What do we have in the bag for Pittsburgh?
Penguins made a second trade today. Trade number 2.
Hmm.
They traded away Jordan Frasca, noted Penguins legend, for Cody Glass, a third and a sixth. Third in 2025, sixth in 2026. I love this deal.
You a big Cody Glass
So,
fan?
well, before we even get there, let's start with Frasca because people are like, well, who are we getting out of Frasca? Well, Jordan Frasca has played 11 AHL games in the last 2 seasons.
Mhm.
Pointless, 16 penalty minutes, -5.
Ew.
ECHL, he had 33 points in 40 games last year. So, he's producing
Mhm.
at an ECHL level. Undrafted, signed by the Penguins. I hesitate to use the word nothing, but they gave up nothing in this trade.
Mhm.
You get 2 draft picks, which the Penguins sorely need. Let's not kid ourselves here. This team needs draft picks. And, they got new scouting staff coming in. They're going to kind of overhaul, go at it again. So give them shots, give them spots. Cody Glass, I do like as a player. He was the 6th overall pick back in 2017, almost traded to the Habs for Max Pacioretty. Instead, they decided to give them Suzuki, which worked out really good for them.
Yeah.
He's had a bit of a rough ride, but not this season. Last year, he had 35 points in 72 games. It's not bad.
So
It,
he'd be sitting as your like third, fourth line then, third, fourth line guy.
yeah, he is, I think, traditionally a center.
Mhm.
I'm inclined to say he'll play the wing here.
Mm,
I just don't see him cracking our center core.
sure.
But last year had, a little rougher of a year. 26-point pace. 13 points in 41 games, 6 goals. 26-point pace. That's fine. He makes $2.5 million this year, and then he's an RFA. So you acquired a third liner because like the Preds needed the cap space, so they have to move on from a third
Yeah.
liner who probably still has a pretty good ceiling.
Mhm.
Probably not what we thought it was, but he could still, I think, grow past where he is now. And you get 2 free draft picks. And the Penguins have now made 2 cap dump trades and brought in legitimate NHL players for it. There's some cap dumps where you're like, oh, here's the contract of a guy who like basically doesn't exist anymore.
Mm.
These are 2 guys who last year were playing in the NHL, playing, I'll say, notable minutes, for lack of a better term. I don't want to say high end because that's not particularly true for either of them,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
notable minutes, and put up decent numbers and will go in and be actual players for your team. And you're getting paid to do it. And if you really want to get technical with it, that Kevin Hayes trade is where we got St. Louis' second, which basically helped us get the trade swap, which moved our 5th to a 3rd. So it's trades, a part of trades. The trade tree is going to be insane.
Yeah.
No hard. I don't know what Cody Glass is going to do, and I don't necessarily know that Cody Glass is the player that I kind of hoped he was going to be, because I was high on him from the start, and he hasn't quite necessarily shown that he's that guy. Cody Glass is an NHL player, and he's a little more than that. And you got him for free, and they paid you for it.
Mm.
That is as tidy a piece of business as I could ever ask for.
Yeah. The replies to the Twitter post or the X post are saying do his masterclass.
They there was something that came out. It was like I can't remember what platform it was on. It might have been the Athletic, and it was like, here's how fans feel about their managers and their management, and like they're gonna rank their confidence. And Dubas and the Penguins were like 28th, and I was like, guys, he's not like top 10. Like he's still pretty new, but like, how are we ranking him near the bottom? Shooting up.
Mm.
He's going up my list because this feels like the closest thing to rebuilding on the fly that they can do right now.
Yeah.
And, make moves, get a little better, and get picks. But the thing I'm going to say about this, and this is a little unrelated, but, speaking on the Dubas thing, I don't love that the Crosby's not done yet.
Yeah.
The silence is getting a little louder, to be honest with you, but, you do have a year to figure that out. So please do that.
For literally everyone's sake, please keep Sidney Crosby a forever Penguin.
God, it would be so gross.
But keep
It
in
would
mind,
be so gross.
this is probably what Tampa Bay fans feel like with the
About
Steven
who?
Stamkos the Steven Stamkos bit of business.
Yeah, I guess. Crosby's better though. I feel like Crosby's a little
That's
more to it.
undisputed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I should. That was a little disrespectful to Stamkos. I apologize. But this will hurt more.
Yeah.
But yeah, heck of a middle of August day, Kyle Dubas. Pop off, King. God, I hope we make the playoffs after all this, or this will feel a little silly. But, With this move, Penguins have just over $1 million in space, which is not bad. So, I mean, I got no complaints.
I mean, I have nothing realistically to add on to that. Tidy bit of work, as you said. Got them for free, and they even paid you for it in picks, which Penguins do sorely need. I got nothing else to add on to that.
You mentioned the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I did.
They're in the news right now, you know?
They are. Actually, I saw this earlier today and thought, oh, that's interesting.
So, for people who don't know the story, you know, this is still a fairly new one, and like not everyone's as familiar with the business part of the game. So they might not see it till it gets a little closer. So for people who don't know, fill us in. What's going on in Tampa?
So, what's going on in Tampa is that, well, they are for sale, or at least getting valued to be sold. Sportsnet reported not too long ago, I believe it was earlier today, that multiple sources tell Elliot Friedman, who, of course, Hockey Night in Canada legend, that the Tampa Bay Lightning currently working on a sale with a value that is close to $2 billion US.
Which is a lot of money.
Which is a lot of money. Just briefly taking a look at the article here, this deal surpasses Ottawa's $950 million sale to the new owner, Michael Andlauer, as the largest in NHL history. $2 billion for quite a strong franchise, and has been for a very long time now, too.
So a couple of the details on this, like a couple of the more specific things. So Jeff Vinik is the current owner of the team. He's, you know, earned a pretty solid reputation with the club. It is being reported right now by Friedman that he will hold on to control of the organization, like in terms of the operations, for a few years, so he won't immediately step out. So he's not selling all his stock. He will still be one of the major owners, but it's Doug Ostrover, who is the CEO of Blue Owl Capital, which is an investment firm, if you couldn't tell by the name, is the one who's expected to be pulling the trigger on the team. And do you want to guess, in 2010, when Vinik bought the Lightning, what did he pay for it?
I mean, I can see it because I have the article up in here.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Man, you really...
So the answer is $170 million, which...
Yeah, but now it's less exciting.
It's less exciting. But still, $170 million paid for in 2010, and now value has skyrocketed to, what, sorry, again? How many more zeros is that? That's at least 2, probably 3.
No, pretty sure it's 2. Pretty sure you had it right. You add an extra 0. We're getting crazy now.
Yeah, $2 billion. That's quite a thing. But to be fair, in that sort of time span, you know, what, it would be 14 years going on to 15 by the time the new year rolls around. You've won 2 cups. Not just that, you won 2 cups back to back, which not a lot of teams can say. Your team can say that, Ryan. Not a lot of teams can say that.
It's pretty fun to say.
Yeah. And it's also, this isn't totally unheard of, sort of selling off in some level of success, as far as my knowledge goes. I believe it was also Vegas that underwent something not entirely dissimilar to this, where they just won a cup, and then there were some business dealings going on after they just won a cup, and people were like, well, why are they doing it now? It's because they can get more out of it. The organization, that is, can get more out of it.
Yeah, the Lightning timed up very nice, too, of like, you're probably on the downswing. Like, it's probably near the end of the era. I mean, even the Penguins were bought. Fenway Sports Group owns the Penguins now, so even there was a sales change. Kind of around the same time frame as Tampa, or probably the middle between Tampa and Vegas. But like, we have definitely seen a bit of a trend of these hockey teams selling while they're high, except for the Ottawa Senators. But to be fair, there was obviously some external circumstances that kind of sped that one along.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an interesting trend business-wise of these teams are selling when things are hot.
And I mean, it makes practical business sense because the organization as a whole gets more money out of it. So, why would you not want to get more money out of a deal, right? You have this successful franchise, won multiple Stanley Cups, let alone 2 back-to-back, which again, nearly unheard of for many, many teams. Sell it off. You'll get buckets of money for it. Just because you're in that window, or at least starting to let that window go, just because it's the position you're in, but you still have that success behind you and recent success at that.
And the last point that I have to make is if let's just round up the numbers and say they sell for $2 billion. That means they are worth half of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which feels upsetting.
Maybe a little bit.
It feels very deeply upsetting. It's at least it's like a Florida thing, but yeah, they are half of a Jacksonville Jaguars.
You hate to see that. Hate to hear about that in the first place. Jeez.
I hated saying it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and what I'll comment again, kind of on the business side of things, is we are now seeing a huge jump in what these teams are worth.
Mm.
The Ottawa Senators kind of marked the beginning of that. Like for them to go for as high as they did, that was an unexpected turn. And I think it's kind of reset the market on things a little bit.
Mm.
Listen, sports are free money, man. They are free money.
Except for gamblers.
For their owners. Oh, that's even more free money for the owners. Are you kidding?
I said
the
gamblers.
players maybe not, but the owners. Oh man, that's even more money in their pockets. Like it is, after COVID, it's such an easy way to make money, and you're gonna start seeing the jump now that we've seen Ottawa do it and Tampa's kind of followed suit. I don't know if we're gonna see another team sell the majority of its stake, obviously, for under $1 billion. I just don't think that number is going to happen again because I just think the NHL teams have taken a big jump in that sense. And I think that is something that is probably pretty indicative of the league's health for all the many, many problems it has. And it does have problems. That is a huge jump that should get all the people who are doing the money for the NHL, owners, Gary, Bill Daly, very excited.
One final point I'll add to that, though, is that for that billion number to work in my mind, they still will have had to have some recent successes, in my book at least. Because realistically, I mean, either that or a very bright future that'll come sooner than later. Let's see. I'll throw out Anaheim, I suppose. Anaheim, not too great of a position that they're in right now. They have some young talent that, is still developing. I'll give them that. But that's also been the case that they've been developing talent for a little while now. A couple of seasons, and they haven't exactly blossomed. So I think for that billion number to work, at a minimum, you will have had to have some success or be a very strong hockey market anyway.
Yeah, but is Ottawa either of those things?
That's a fair point, but also Ottawa fans, I think, are I don't know, like yeah, I suppose you're right. I don't know if I'd count Ottawa in that. I won't deny that they're a very strong hockey market. I think they are, actually. Even though the teams, they had a hockey team way back in, well, since near the founding of the hockey league, like 1916-17. The Senators did exist at that time. Now they're not necessarily the same, but I think there's something to be said that they existed that long ago when there was 6 teams total at that point.
I will also say the Coyotes were 1.2 billion.
So that was the price that Smith
That is
Entertainment Group paid for the move to Utah. 1.2 billion. Wow.
I think a billion is the standard now. I think the billion is you are the poverty team in the league, and you're still probably hitting a billion. Because I mean, the Coyotes have a decently bright future, but how often is there an NHL team that is actively terrible with no sign of future or anything to invest in?
Mm.
What about the Penguins? We have Crosby. That sells tickets.
Yeah.
We're fine. And even then, they're not terrible, and they have the recent success to back it up. I don't think there's a team in the league that will realistically meet the standards that you're setting to be below a billion. Because even the worst teams have something. Because, like, to me, the prime candidates, well, what about Buffalo? Well, Buffalo almost made the playoffs this season. They got their franchise center. They acquired AHLer Tyler Tullio for a top 10 pick. They have the goalie of the future. Like, there's still things there. Like, I think $1 billion is the minimum for, the majority ownership of a team. I think you're walking away with $1 billion plus. I think for every team in the league.
Every team in the league. Okay.
I will be very surprised if it's less than that.
So what do you think would be like? What team would realistically hit that floor of $1 billion flat, no higher? What do you think would be the lowest? I hate to say value, but you sort of know what I'm getting at. Yeah.
I think value is the only word for it, honestly. I think that's the way you have to kind of view it. Lowest value. There's a small part of me that wonders about Seattle.
Okay.
Just for the purpose of they haven't really done anything yet. They've got some pieces, like, Matty Beniers and stuff. Like, they've certainly got some players.
Shane Wright, hopefully, if he still
Shane
turns out all
Wright.
right.
There's a few other prospects that are in that system, but they're kind of new. They haven't really done anything. Obviously would not sell. Like, to be clear, like, I'm aware that they would never consider that. But
yeah,
speaking on a hypothetical level, I wonder about them, but I think the new factor might help them. I wonder about Winnipeg. Not for any particular, like, not even necessarily for the criteria of what we just set.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like Winnipeg is a weird franchise.
I mean, to be fair, they also already have done it a couple of times anyway, right?
Yeah.
So there is maybe a little precedent for Winnipeg moving back and forth.
I think if I have to pick one team who I think will either hit the billion or under the billion, and they kind of don't qualify on the metrics that we set, I am picking the Columbus Blue Jackets.
That was my thought as well.
No success. Sorry, guys. It's true. They do have a lot of young guys coming up.
Yeah.
Not really a sign that they can develop. And if I'm coming in from an investor's point of view, there's a lot of money tied to a not great team.
Yeah.
Gaudreau is making nearly 10. Line A is making, what, like 8.5. You just locked up Monahan for the next half decade. Zach Werenski's making a lot of money, although I think he's pretty good. Damon Severson's making a lot of money. Your goaltender's making, 5.5, and he can't stop the puck and doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Like, they definitely have a lot of pieces, but I think there's a lot of money tied to a not very good team, and there's no brand recognition with the club. No. Even, you buy a team like Buffalo. Buffalo's been around. They exist. Columbus?
I don't know that they've ever... I will say, with the caveat of Rick Nash, there's no, like, recognizable name now that I would attribute to
Bobrovsky. Columbus. I would still put him there.
Okay, you'd still add Bobrovsky in it? That's fair. Okay.
I mean, if people want to say he's just Florida because of the cup, I'll get it. I think that's misunderstanding the Bobrovsky story. I think that
Yeah.
is a Columbus success story,
Okay.
but I do think that's the list.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, you think of Johnny Gaudreau, you don't. I mean, you know him as a Columbus Blue Jacket. You know he's making a huge amount of money, but you also know that he's not exactly producing for you. Patrick Laine, I would know him more from his time here up north than as a Columbus Blue Jacket.
I would think of Dubois before I would think of him.
Yeah. Sean Monahan, I mostly think of him as a Hab. That may be more recency bias. I will say Boone Jenner is, you know, I
Listen,
would,
there are players I think of as Blue Jackets. It's just there's no
yeah,
high-end players I think of as Blue Jackets,
yeah,
with those two exceptions.
yeah. Do you think Fantilli could make that push?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Fantilli. I think Johnson could. I think if you give Werenski a team that's halfway decent,
Hmm.
I think he could. I think there's quite a few players. Like I said, I love this team's prospect system. I really do. I think they've got nothing but bangers as prospects. I I I just can't judge you on prospects because you haven't been good enough to be judged on prospects. You haven't been good enough at developing prospects. You haven't been good enough at like even when you do develop prospects, you haven't been good enough at taking them to the next level.
yeah,
So they've got a lot of pieces who 15 years from now we could be like, man, that Columbus team was gross.
yeah.
Wow, it took them a long time, but like, man, they finally got there for their fans.
Hmm. But that's also
I
like extreme hindsight after the fact, though.
yeah, I if someone comes back to me 15 years from now, the Jackets won like 2 Stanley Cups, and like, see, look how dumb you were, brother. I was right.
Hmm.
Y'all hired a coach and he didn't make it to training camp. I don't want to hear about it. I was right.
Noted Blue
I'm right in
Jackets.
the moment. I acknowledge that. Hey, this could change.
Hmm.
I really think it could. I was gonna say I hope it do, but I don't really like you guys that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a divisional thing.
Hmm.
It's honestly nothing to do with you. But regardless, I think it could change. It has not. It is very much the same.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry, Columbus. We love
Oh,
you,
I'm not sorry.
but also your team is not fantastic.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right.
Austin Matthews. I mean, people have been waiting, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, as of the recording, the press conference where his captaincy is being announced has not happened.
No.
So, have us appear right now on the screen if something crazy happened and this whole thing is immediately on a date. We're here now and we're gonna explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we haven't shown up because this is gonna go exactly the way we think it is, Austin Matthews, Leafs captain,
Leafs captain.
26th in franchise history, and
It's a lot of captains.
kind of weird. Kind of a weird one. I think there's 3 players in this conversation.
Mhm.
The first 2 are obvious: Tavares, Matthews. I think the third is Morgan Riley.
Yeah. I was thinking Morgan. I mean, what? Longest tenured Leaf in this current roster, has been through the ringer, has, knows the pain of being a Toronto Maple Leafs player.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Morgan Riley is probably, I won't say more deserving, because also it's not like you're putting up, a nobody as your next captain of your franchise for one of the, for all intents and purposes, biggest teams in the NHL. It's not like you're putting up a no-name person. You're putting up Austin Matthews, one, I believe it's a couple Rocket Richards actually. Like, very, very decorated player, still in his prime by all means, or, still maybe even entering it. Like, we haven't seen the height of his career yet, and we may not until a couple seasons down the road. But with that also comes, I hesitate to use the word inexperience, but I think I agree that Morgan Riley should have been in that conversation maybe before Matthews, just because of how long he's been with the Leafs.
I get the feeling that the Morgan Riley train left the station when Tavares became the captain.
Mm.
Just in terms of it even then, and even when Tavares was named captain, and people don't really remember this, it almost was Austin.
Mm.
Austin was very much in the conversation, but he got in trouble for flashing a security guard in Arizona, which is a thing that a lot of people forget happened.
Mm.
And after that, you can't make him the captain.
No.
So, let's make it the hometown guy who was a captain before, Tavares. I think that was more of the wrong call. I don't even necessarily think that's entirely on Tavares. I just think Riley was the guy then.
Mm.
Matthews, let's be honest, he's closing in on a decade in the league, which is horrific to say, but it's true. He's almost been around a decade. He has been there for the few successes that there's been. And I don't even say that to be mean. I can't think of a better way to word it. He's been there for the failures. He's been there for the insanity that happens in every 82 game season they play. And I'm okay with him being captain now. I think he needed some maturing. I think he needed some work. I think Tavares was unfortunately the wrong guy. And I think he was the wrong guy for the wrong coach. Tavares is a captain from everything I've seen, and we're not in the room. I'm not even a Leafs fan. I could be incorrect about this. I could be incorrect about everything I say, to be honest with you. Wasn't enough of a hard ass to give the Leafs what they needed. And that's not even necessarily a bad trade on him, but you pair him with Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah.
And that just seems like a combination of leadership of who's going to be the bad cop. And everyone's going, well, Babcock. And I'm going to say, no, stop it. I already made fun of him once. I don't need to do it again.
You could.
I could. I kind of already did by acknowledging the first time. But they don't need that either.
No.
They need Craig Berube. Very possibly.
And they have him.
I would say, I'm not sure. I think he's a lot closer to what they need.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think Matthews is going to come in and be a hard ass. I don't think that's necessarily what he's going to do. But I also think he doesn't need to do it as much as Tavares did. I think that onus has been taken off him, and he can lead on the ice by example.
Yeah.
Because that's the best way he can lead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know if Morgan Riley should have worn the C or not. I really don't. I would have heard that news and been like, "Yep, I'm cool with it." And I hear this news and I'm like, "Yep, I'm cool with it." I think he deserves an acknowledgement in this conversation because, to be honest, I think he should have been the guy since. I mean, Tavares was captain in 2019. They could have made Riley the captain the day Dion left, and I would have been okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think giving Riley a little bit of flowers here is fair. I do think this is probably the time to give it to Matthews, and I bet you that in the contract talks that happened, because we just got extended.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you this question came up at least once. And good chance that this was the answer.
Yeah.
That, maybe it's the year after. Maybe it's the year Tavares leaves. But it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
On Tavares, I saw it put in a way that I agree with, which is if this deal comes with an extension for Tavares, which there are some rumors that it will, but I'm not sold on those rumors. They're a little less concrete of rumors than everything else.
Yeah, they're very unsubstantiated for a Tavares deal to be added with the new captaincy.
I think if you don't give him that, I think it's a bit of a crappy look.
Mm.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, like we just said, the guy wasn't the leader they needed.
Yeah.
He was a good leader. He wasn't the leader they needed.
Mm.
And the hope is that Matthews, he's now extended. He's now the guy. He's, shown that he's committed to the team. He's now given the opportunity to come in and lead differently. They say that this was something that Tavares kind of agreed to. That's also one that I'm a little unsure about. I don't know if it was a, hey, like, I'm happy to do this, or a, you're doing it, so I'm going to go with it.
Mm.
Speculation. But I have to feel like this has to sting for him.
Yeah.
But him signing an extension, even if it's a 1-year deal, even if it's just a little like stay along thing, like come on back, I think to me would probably convey a lot more message of cohesiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe this is, I'm gonna throw this out here, and I'm probably gonna be wrong a year from now. If we don't hear about a Tavares extension in the next week or two,
Mm-hmm.
this is John Tavares' last season as a Toronto Maple Leaf. I don't see him being a later re-sign at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think what happens to him in these next couple weeks shows where everybody's at.
Yeah.
That extension to go, hey man, like you're a Leaf for life. We want you. You're here. Or, well, there's not really any confirmation. Whatever happens, happens. I mean, we've seen captaincy strips in the league before, and a few of the times it does involve the player just kind of going his own way after the fact. So I wouldn't be surprised if an extension's not done in the next 2 weeks, or at least some like major rumblings about it, and then
Yeah.
it happens. This is John Tavares' last year. Whether that's his choice or the Leafs' choice, I think this could be a beginning of the end situation for JT.
Mm-hmm. One other thing I'll add to that is, and it's a possibility, I'm not saying it'll happen, but if this could also be a factor of that maybe Tavares will retire after this year.
Ooh, wow. You think that young?
He's 33. I think he has a lot of experience, clearly, as a leader of the team. He was the captain for the New York Islanders for a very long time. Islanders fans still give it to him every time he's in that arena. And, I won't say not rightly so.
Yeah, I kind of will.
Yeah.
It's overdone.
Yeah, it's a bit overdone, but I won't deny it's not funny. Then you get him onto a Toronto Maple Leafs team. You give him the captaincy, I believe, right away.
Pretty close to.
Yeah, I think it was understood that he would be, thought of as the new team leader. But, I just wonder if maybe there's a factor to that. He is getting up there in age. He is still, by all accounts, on the right side of 30. But we've also seen younger players retired for less. Maybe it's forced upon them due to injury. But, that's not to say that they can't choose it. So
I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit it is a bit far fetched, but I just wanted to put that out there that it's entirely a possibility. Is it very likely? I still don't think so, but we never really know.
Yeah, there have been more surprising things to take place. I certainly can't deny it.
Mm-hmm.
I think his health has been generally too good for me to really go down that route.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the difference. But yeah, it's weird. They're trying, I mean, as they'll try to play it like it's just a mutual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something in my brain that's telling me, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I do think Matthews having the C might give them a slightly better chance than Tavares.
I
I don't know
mean,
how much the difference is, but
yeah.
I do think, again, he's better for it.
I mean, new voice, right? It almost always sparks some level of you know, I guess inspiration is the word I'm looking for. New voice not new voice in the room, new voice manning the ship, as it were. That always sort of sparks some level of maybe higher compete or just inspiration overall. And certainly not a bad thing. If you would have kept Tavares captain for this season, cool. All right. But I think it's another thing needed in what's probably maybe a shakeup that the Maple Leafs needed.
And this story will not matter if they lose in the first round.
Nope.
That's the funny outcome that always comes back.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything, then all it'll do is just, and might be an important factor, all it will do is make the noise on Matthews louder.
Yeah.
And that could be a problem.
So with that, shall we move forward along?
Oh, we got one more thing.
Okay. And this is not something I don't think I'm aware of.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
You being aware of it is not something I know of.
Okay.
There's a lawsuit that has just been put in motion.
Oh, you know what? I did see. I didn't go into it, but I know it has something to do. I believe it's the NCAA, or at least the college level of hockey, and it was something to do with eligibility. So I know some of it, but why don't you let us know the details?
So their lawsuit they're being filed against is seeking to end the long-standing ban on professionals playing in the NCAA. That would allow there to be professional hockey players who, have played pro hockey to go into the NCAA. At first, you'll think, okay, who cares? Should professional hockey players get to play hockey? But it's when you know a couple of the people that are considered professional hockey players in this lawsuit that makes it so interesting. Specifically, the Canadian Hockey League. So this lawsuit is being argued that allowing or not allowing any player from the CHL to go to the NCAA is not great. Specifically, it's a federal antitrust law that they're going after.
Mm-hmm.
And the rules are actually very strict for this. I don't know if you could say, there's kind of an understanding of you can't do anything. That's pretty simple. But it's actually a lot stricter than that. So it's as simple as if you are a part of a CHL team camp for 48 hours, you are ineligible for NCAA. You can play 0 games. You can attend 1 or 2 practices realistically in that span and be barred from playing NCAA hockey. Playing games? Not a shot. So the NCAA considers the CHL as a professional league because there's, the argument is basically because players go on to sign professional contracts in the NHL, that it's professional, which is not great.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a weird ruling, to be honest.
Mm.
The court was started by Rylan Masterton, who played 2 exhibition games for the Windsor Spitfires and then was denied the NCAA. 0 regular season games. And so that is kind of the conversation is this lawsuit going to be strong enough to actually overturn this? Because, we've been hearing for the last couple months that a change in this might be possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that they might look at trying to figure out if there's exceptions to be made or, all that stuff. But I don't know if that's related to this. I don't know if that's something they knew, so they started having that conversation. But
Right.
regardless, this might very quickly speed things up. I don't know necessarily like where the winds are blowing on this one. Like, I don't know, having looked at this, whether or not I think there's a chance for them to win it and for Masterton to actually win this case. But I think the argument of these guys aren't professionals is a very easy one to make.
Mm.
They receive a stipend for like $500 a month for food and stuff, and they get educations paid for. That's college hockey. Your education paid for. Yeah, that's the thing you do. So I feel like morally, this should be a slam dunk.
Mm.
The other interesting part about this is the lawsuit also suggests that if you were to lift the ban, that this would result in CHL teams actually increasing their compensation to players, which I think is a fascinating detail to include.
Mm-hmm.
And also the lawsuit notes that, and I did not know this before doing research for this, is that the NCAA bylaws actually does allow professionals to participate, with the exception of skiing and ice hockey, among a couple others. So a lot of actual NCAA sports, you can be considered professional, even though they're not professional, and that's a bizarre way to class the CHL.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of places where you can do it. It's just this sport you can't. But yeah, apparently this was also something that was kind of seen as inevitable, but the official action was taken recently, so we could see a major change in the way it plays out. I am inclined to think it would benefit the CHL more than the NCAA, or at least benefit them earlier. Because I mean, the career path then becomes you do both.
Yeah.
I go to NCAA or I go to the CHL and I try to get drafted, and that doesn't work. Well, I'm gonna go play US hockey because I know there's more scouts there. Because I mean, to speak on the QMJHL specifically, let's figure out the best players. They all go play for New Brunswick. The University of New Brunswick is dominant at this level.
Yeah.
Because it's not well balanced hockey, I guess, super competitive compared to some of the other areas. Because it's a smaller region, it is what
Mm-hmm.
it is. Peter Reynolds of the Mooseheads just signed in the University of New Brunswick, who went undefeated last year to win the championship, 30-0 in the regular season.
Mm.
But how many scouts are showing up to an Acadia University versus Dalhousie game?
Yeah.
Even if you go play hockey for Arizona State University, a solid program, but not the highest of high, there's going to be some scouts there. They're not going to be looking at you necessarily, but you put on a good game and they go, look at that kid there, graduated from the CHL looking pretty good. And all of a sudden, there's kind of that piece. Now, the only thing about that is that the CHL gives out scholarships only to Canadian schools.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be interesting to see how that would play out. So you would have to probably pull a full scholarship for a lot of these kids, because do I really care to go play fourth line D1 or like D2 hockey, but pay for schooling when I can just go play at the University of Ottawa and get a free ride?
Mm.
Which is why I think this is going to go more the CHL's way than I think it will NCAA. But at the same time, it's hard to say for sure, because there might be players who just play a year and go, I don't like Canada, and they go back to the US.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I will say about this lawsuit is Boston University's Tom Willander appeared in 2 professional games last year in Sweden. He is eligible for the NCAA, which is one of the things that the suit, again, to me, like, not knowing a thing about law, seems like a slam dunk part. Why is this guy allowed in the CHL isn't, if he's playing in an actual professional league, the Swedish Elite League to be specific?
Mm.
So
I almost wonder if there's that part of the fact that they are in Europe, though, as opposed to on the same sort of continent.
but if it's a professional, it's a professional.
Yeah.
if your ruling is you cannot play in this league as a professional, that's it. That's as clear the writing that you can possibly make. So that's, and I definitely think that's a part of it. Like I definitely think that's the logic for them. But once you start putting that into, a legal context, that's just not going to hold up.
Hmm.
If your argument is, well, they're in a different, continent, you said professional team. They're a professional. So I think you're not wrong necessarily, but thinking about it from that all important legal standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
Again, not being a lawyer, this sure feels like a slam dunk. Feels like a real slam dunk of yeah, you have been doing things wrong.
Hmm.
But that's just me. So we could see a change in the next couple of years. I mean, it's kind of seemed like it's been possible for a bit. And maybe we'll see some more crossover between the two best junior development paths that there is.
Yeah.
And I would be a fan of that.
I mean, if it gets players being maybe more developed than they would have if they come from one or the other. If they have the option for both, right? Who's to say that's a bad thing in the first place if they do both? Like, yeah, I agree. I think it's, there doesn't seem like a contest here that I think the NCAA could win realistically in this. Now, again, we are not lawyers. We do not provide legal advice. But this seems fairly cut and dry.
And the last thing I'll say on it is it also puts your own people. Like, look at the Mooseheads for a minute. Brady Schultz, he's an American. He comes over, and Brady, as far as I know, has had a pretty good time. He hasn't asked to leave like half of our team did. But if he comes over and goes, man, this sucks. I don't want to be in Canada anymore. Sucks, man. Like, you're stuck here.
Yeah.
The only path to playing high level junior hockey or hopefully eventually professional hockey is you have to stay in this country, which is not, I don't think, in the spirit of what the NCAA is trying to do, which is just protect its own talent.
Mm-hmm.
You're also shutting some of it out, inevitably. So I think we'll see a very quick change on this. And I think it's a change that will give a lot more options to these young players who deserve it.
And when has options ever been a bad thing?
What are you going to do? Oh no, he gets to play where he wants? Oh, I feel so bad. Last note I got before we wrap this up, you have anything else to add?
No, not particularly. I will say, though, in the document I'm looking at, per Rick Westhead on Twitter, it names specific universities. Are these all of them? Or is there still more? Do you know what I mean? Is there still more universities either to be named in this? Because, I mean, the US is a big country, but I almost wonder if there's maybe one or two universities that aren't on at least this document that may be missing from this.
It also might be grouped by division.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make more sense. Because like
I don't have the document, but that would be my assumption.
Yeah, because I'm seeing like Rochester Institute of Technology, which is in Upper New York, Niagara University, Boston College, Boston University, University of Denver's in there, which is in Colorado. Quinnipiac University, University of Notre Dame, Dulac, Stonehill College, University of St. Thomas. Like, okay, so yeah, I wonder if that must be it then. Maybe it's by division.
Or certainly, I don't know NCAA hockey enough to be sure.
Yeah.
But my assumption would be it's grouped in some way because I mean there's probably 1,000 schools that could technically be named.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are just like maybe the high levels. Like I don't know college hockey enough. Someone who knows more, tell me. It's not often I say that, but college hockey is definitely a weak point of mine.
Actually, you know what? I do see, speaking of Rick Westhead, I do see, just before we wrap here, that Rick Westhead is saying that the jury trial of the 5 Canadian World Juniors players could, in his words, could begin in April of next year.
Okay, that's I think a bit better of a timeline than we first heard.
Yeah, I mean, at least if you're in Canada, it's realistically no secret that we are in a very large backlog with anything to do with the courts, at least in like a criminal way. So we were thinking, you know, the thought was, well, I guess when is this World Junior thing going to trial? We thought probably 2 or 3 years from now. But April 2025, again, allegedly, this is just Rick Westhead reporting on X, formerly Twitter, about this date. It could entirely be speculation, or he could be right. We don't really know until official sources confirm it. But it is a lot sooner of a timeline than I think many people thought. And also, maybe one more thing to add on to that. That brings into the question of, well, if it is this soon, 2 of those players listed of the 5 now have signed contracts over in Europe. One in the KHL and the other in Kazakhstan, if I'm not mistaken. So they'll have to leave mid-season to go, you know, participate in this trial, of which they are the accused.
Realistically, I would assume both teams knew that was a possibility.
Yeah.
I would hope. I would hope they did at least that much research, but I guess you don't know.
Yeah. Never really know. But with that, I think that's everything covered.
Congratulations, Liam Kilfoyle, Holinka Gretzky champion, gold medal, baby. Just want to give that a shout out. Also, this is a signed Zach Bucali jersey. I'm also repping it for him, but also I just like this jersey. It's new. Paid $100 for it. It was a great price.
Ooh, that is a solid.
It's a good price. It's a good price for a normal jersey.
Yeah,
jersey signature on the back.
Jersey prices, especially in CAD, are still wacky.
Especially junior jerseys.
Yeah.
Because there's not many of those kicking around as spares.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's all I got.
That's all we got, I think. I think we're all done. I don't know. I don't know. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you can follow us on Twitter. I'll probably, have something you can react to, whether that be a good reaction or it's probably a bad reaction. Let's all be honest.
It's bad
reaction. But yeah, you can certainly follow us on Twitter if you like. Thank you again for listening and watching, and we will catch you all next time, which will hopefully be sooner than later, but it all depends on the hockey world at large and the news.
It's August.
Yeah, it's August. I mean, to be fair, September is next month, and we are in the middle of August. So,
it is almost predictions time.
It is almost predictions time. Maybe that will be our next episode.
I got some ideas cooking up. We got something coming up real good for that. Just don't know when it's going to be.
Yeah, just let us cook.